To the journey of an awakening spirit with your host, Kathleen Flanagan. The journey of an awakening spirit is about teaching you a variety of tools that you can use to step into your true self. It is about self-discovery, realizing you are not alone on your journey. We will open the phone lines, give readings, and talk about what our listeners want to know. So please welcome the host of the journey of an awakening spirit, Kathleen Flanagan.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. I am your host, Kathleen Flanagan, and we are on the Bold Brave TV network. And today I have a special guest named Zak Lioutas, and she is a multidimensional being that has experienced life differently. Since the age of 3, she has had many encounters with spirit, and not all pleasant ones. You may hear her say some people watch horror movies, others live them. Zak lived them. In 1997, Zak went through thyroid cancer and her first massive spiritual awakening. From going through many ups and downs in life and experiencing depression more times than she wants to admit, Zak has always found herself going back to her truth is where the most happiness was found. As a galactic elder, master key holder, 12 strain activator, soul activator, and Jesus-loving human, Zak has the pleasure of bringing many through a journey of inner self-discovery, conquering both past and present lives to heal the present and the future self. Today, Zak finds pleasure in guiding women through the process of spiritual awakening, serving the truth, and finding humor throughout the way. Spiritual awakening shouldn't be painful, but it's about becoming mindful and cultivating the light from the darkness of life into something more pleasant for the soul. Zak runs the bold, fierce, unstoppable woman's inner circle, as well as hosts messages from the other side live events. Welcome, Zak.
Thank you for having me. Such a pleasure to be here with
Well, I'm just really excited because this is Zak, who I said I was going to be having on our show every month. And so today I want to have her just kind of talk about her journey, how she got here, just what entailed. And then she and I are going to talk about various things about listening to spirit, how to connect with them, the different ways as you evolve, and possibly get into some little teasers about some of the other fun things we want to talk about down the road. So Zak, I'm going to turn it over to you for now.
It's so funny. You caught me off guard with that introduction. I was like, oh, we're talking about 97 and all these things. So I was given this gift. It wasn't something I asked for since the age of 3. I just arrived here. I guess I was just meant to arrive here. I'm still trying to figure out why I came here. Well, that's not true. We know why we came here. We just don't really want to face that. But my greatest spiritual awakening was in 1997 when I went through cancer. And I really didn't even have a clue what I was going through because it was something that I was living, but never had a title or reference to or understanding that anyone else was really experiencing what I was experiencing. So when cancer struck, it was like all these different things were happening to me, but I couldn't express it or speak it to anyone because I would have been known as I usually was known as one flew off the cuckoo's nest with whatever was going on. So when I went through that spiritual awakening, it was pretty incredible. I always say I have to write a book about it because the more I talk about it, the more I think, holy Jesus, that was that's incredible to experience something like that. But I ended up going, I found out, let me start with cancer because I just want to talk about for a second how the universe works and how incredible it is when we listen to our intuition, our dreams, our body, our thoughts, our emotions, and everything else that comes with it. So in 1997, I can't remember what month it was, but my grandfather passed away. I had a very strong bond and connection with my grandfather. Probably about 9 years prior to that, I felt my grandfather calling me. And what happened was my grandfather actually called my mom and said, I've seen all the other grandchildren but the youngest one, which is me. And so what I did, because I really didn't, it wasn't one to be within the school system, I jumped on a plane, went right to Europe to hang out with my grandfather for 3 weeks. And in that 3 weeks, a lot of things have shifted, because when my grandfather found that I was coming to Greece, he was on his deathbed, but then he picked me up from the airport. So things didn't make sense to me. So I knew that there was a special bond between me and my grandfather. Now, fast forward to a few months later, I had this dream of my grandfather coming to me in a form of a bird saying, you have to go to the doctors, you have cancer. Well, sometimes when you have dreams like that, you either are going to panic, you're going to think like that was crazy, you're not going to understand certain things. So you're just kind of most likely ignore it, like the way I did. But I was working in a restaurant and someone said to me, Zach, you have these lumps on your neck. Have you noticed that? And I was like, I looked in the mirror and I'm like, what is this? And I never understood it. But then I remembered to what my grandfather said to me in my dream, go see the doctor, you have cancer. Well, the person that in the restaurant kind of pinpointed where the cancer was, right? So this is the universe talking to me through other people. And this is the way I basically lived my life most of the time, other than, living free and having my own thoughts. But I always listened to other people. Things didn't make sense. I would be open to understanding more and more and more. So fast forward, I had this dream. Everything was going on. 97, my friend was getting married in Europe. My parents were in Europe. And I thought at that point, I was just going to go to the doctor and not tell anyone, because I didn't want anyone to feel sorry for me. I didn't have time for the pity party. I just needed to know. I needed to figure it out. I needed to go. But I also knew that I wasn't afraid to die, because at the end of the day, that was the one guarantee we have in life, is death. And I wasn't afraid of what the outcome would be. I just preferred to die rather than live with illness. That was what was going on in my head. And what happened was I ended up going to Europe, and I kept on hearing on my way to Europe, I was supposed to be there for 2 weeks, but on my way to Europe, I kept on hearing, I'm leaving on a jet plane, don't know when I'll be back again. And I just kept on singing this over and over and over. Next thing you know, I was in Europe for literally 3 days, ended up extending my trip for 2 months. And I didn't understand why. I didn't ask questions like I would now. I didn't do anything. I was just kind of going with the flow. Like I knew something was going on. I had to face cancer now, because I knew I had cancer. Didn't tell anyone I had cancer. I knew I had to come home to a different reality. I didn't know if I was going to live or die. I didn't know anything. I just kind of was going with it, but I just trusted. So this is the turning point that happened to me. But then a lot of fear had landed. But I was in a village where my friend was getting married, and I was sitting at a well and I was brushing my teeth. And as I was brushing my teeth, I found myself standing literally at the Last Supper. And I was like, what am I doing at the Last Supper table? Like, this is kind of weird. And I heard, like, I even said, like, I'm ready to die if you want me to go. But I heard you have a greater purpose in life and we can't have you die. We need you there. So again, nothing made sense. This is a 97, speaking about this in 97 compared to speaking about it now is a whole different world difference, right? Like, it's not like anyone thinks you're crazy. Now it's like, oh my God, now I'm finding my tribe, right? But before, you're like, one flew off the cuckoo's nest. So all this was going on, and literally, when I was going through this experience, it was that I had to continuously trust. But then when I heard I had a greater purpose in life, I literally froze and I lived in fear for a very long time. And that's when it was like, the childhood wounds came up. People are going to think that you're crazy, or, you have to have a priest bless you, or you need this and you need that. So I went through that whole cancer. But 25 years later is literally when I found out a lot more things in my life. Like I had 2 spiritual walk-ins take over. My purpose is greater than I understood. And the thing was, I had to start learning about myself. It wasn't about studying anyone else and how they became successful. I had to learn about myself and why I was having these visions of death, of getting killed, of being murdered. And I was like, as the most compassionate, loving, caring human being. But at the end, every saint's a sinner and every sinner is a saint, right? So you have to go through that process to understand yourself. So when I went through that process to understand myself, I realized 25 years ago, I remember God telling me that my purpose was greater. And then I realized what it was. But being who I am, I had to go through the different teachings, the different levels of understanding, connecting with God, connecting with everyone. And in that process, spiritual awakening became a lot of different emotions, to say the least. But I don't want to say the worst, because there's no such thing as the worst, but the hardest emotions that I had to deal with was depression. because in that sense of depression was me trying to be who everyone thought I should be, but me not fully being myself in my purpose on my journey, being like in my own comedian ways of just understanding and flowing, really knowing that the universe is going to teach us something, but they're going to bring humor with it. They're going to bring understanding with it. They're going to bring everything with that. But because we are grown and programmed to understand pain is pain is pain is pain, and don't laugh at it, don't do anything with it. And that's why now when I go through something, I just laugh, because it's like, it's that temporary teaching, but it's that everlasting joy that that suffering brought you through. So I went through a lot. And even just last week alone, when I went into the forest, I was dealing with something, and it was like the energy of depression came, and I was like, yo, what are you doing here? You don't reside in me anymore. But it was like this dark spirit that was sitting inside of me that wanted to come out. And we still go through it. Like, 25 years, I landed at 3 years old, seeing my first blue man standing in front of the TV. That's another story on its own. But we go through certain things, and it's incredible what we learn. So that is a little bit about me and going through this spiritual awakening process, because every step through depression, I had another awakening, another awakening, another awakening, another awakening. But the thing is the awakening is learning more and more about yourself, and where you're losing yourself, and where you're giving your power to other people, where you may not be true to yourself. That's the hardest one. We're not being true to yourself, how you're dealing with your inner child. Are you faking it until you're making it, right? And that is the one that drives me crazy, because I tell people I'm depressed if I'm depressed. It's like, I can't be like, oh, I'm just so happy today. No, I'm miserable today. But I rarely have those misery days. And there's just about this, I'm going to talk about something that really drives me crazy, is the positive vibes thing. Like, you can't sit there and live in positive vibes, because you're spiritually bypassing the truth. And I know this because I've been there, and I try to be in this positive vibes for many years. But then what I was doing is I was really ignoring what the problem was, and not getting down to really solving the root of it, the root cause of that emotion that was creating all this energetic suffering from so many past lives. So I got to learn past life, present life, future life, everything. And how you see it energetically is just so incredible. And it's incredible when you see it on others, but it's even more incredible when you finally discover it within yourself.
Wow. I mean, I can totally identify with you. There's no doubt about it. Like I said, I was on her podcast as a guest, and we ended up having some of the most amazing discussions at that time. And we seem to live each other's lives. And there's no doubt in my mind that you are my soul sister.
Right.
So, but when you started doing your awakening, were you trying to find like other people to kind of help and guide you along the way? Because I know that when I was going through it, I always got messages, and I was always told, but there's that element of, you're crazy, you're a wackadoodle, because, you're hearing voices in your head. And even though I trusted that, I had to move into trusting me. And that was probably the hardest thing. So I always wanted to go for validation. And, but I'm going to have you answer that question, because we're going to take a quick break for our sponsors.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery, or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins, reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are on the Bold Brave TV network. And we are talking with Zak right now, and I did ask her a question as far as if she went out looking for other people to kind of help her in the discovery of herself. Because I know for me, when I did that, people would say, "You're the teacher." Which when I was younger, it was like, what do you mean I'm the teacher? I don't know anything. I'm just waking up and trying to get a clue. But what that did for me at that point was it made me look further inside of me to discover what they were seeing that I couldn't see, because I started to realize the grandness of who I am, as we all are, is far more scary than the smallness of who we make ourselves be.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, think of it. 25 years ago, I was told my purpose is greater and that death isn't anywhere close to me. Right. So, that being said, I was always searching for that external validation until I was getting this intuitive hit saying, don't you trust yourself? Don't you trust the higher consciousness within you to make those right decisions? And my answer of my ego was always no. And it was interesting because 2020 rolled around and I was like, you know what? I obviously have some inner demons that I have to deal with. And I came with them head on. And I stopped looking for that external validation because for so many years, I was going to other people that I knew energetically were misaligned, but then I was looking for them to give me answers to my alignment, which kind of got me misaligned, right? So once I got into that 2020 and cleaned out whatever darkness was still lingering inside of me through all this bypassing that I was doing, I stopped looking for that external validation. I stopped really saying like, oh, am I seeing this correctly? Am I hearing this correctly? Well, if I'm seeing this correctly, then give me a sign. If I'm not seeing this correctly, give me a different like vision in order to understand this. So I started trusting myself a lot more and I started asking myself the deeper questions. But when I was guided through the process at the beginning, I kept a lot of stuff to myself just because, you know, every time I would say, you know, I think I want to go see like a life coach, I was being laughed at. And I was like, why do I get laughed at all the time? I'm saying this, like, shouldn't you be so happy for someone to go to that next level in their life so life can make sense? And so I just stopped even speaking about me wanting to see people. But at the end of the day, I was seeing other spiritual mentors that were telling me things. I'm like, you know what? You need to start to get to know yourself. Like, you've never really known yourself because you've tried to please everyone else around you, but not please yourself. You try to please your mommy, your daddy, the teachers. You try to fit in with peers, with your family members, but you weren't meant to fit in. You were made to stand out. And it's uncomfortable standing out. It's uncomfortable speaking in ways and languages that people don't comprehend. And they might say, could you repeat that again? Because you're just like going way too far over my head. So when I learned that, you know, I knew that I didn't fit in. I knew that I didn't really belong into so many places, but I just had to belong into my own self. That's what I had to feel, my own personal belonging. And that's all that mattered at the end of the day. So when I studied myself, I started to realize why I didn't fit. I started to realize what 25 years ago when God said to me that you have a greater purpose, I started to realize all these other things from my past life into this present life. And then I start being even more scared because now I'm like trying to fit in shoes from a past life in this life. So the different levels of fear that I had to deal with was just like, is this ever going to get easy? Or am I just going to continuously go down this road of fear? But then I said, this is not fear. This is excitement. This is the unknown of excitement. So I'm going to just be curious and go with it. I'm just going to be curious and do with whatever feels good. And that's what, after since 2020 and really tapping deeper within myself and getting deeper within my truth and trusting my voice and or trusting that I'm hearing all that. It's in that point right now where I'm back to my old self to be like, I'm comfortable with who I am. And if you're not, hey, there's another direction that you could go into. And it's not going to be with me because now my boundaries are stronger. Who I allow to come into my energy frequency is there's a lot there. Like if I don't feel we're vibing, I don't want you around. And I'm not saying this to sound like I'm better than anybody because I'm not, but I learned what I want and what I don't want. And I just don't want a lot of things around me. I'm happy in myself. I'm happy in my not my loneliness, but my aloneness. And anything beyond myself is a gift. It's a blessing. It's incredible, but I will not tolerate a lot anymore. And that's because of the journey we've been through. Right. And so when I work with a lot of women and we're going through this cleansing and we're recognizing a deeper sense within themselves, I'm like, so what are you what are you holding on to? And they're just like, oh, it's like, yeah, it's that that makes you create these boundaries of saying, I don't want this in my life anymore. And I am fully accepting of it. I hold no shame. I hold no guilt around it. I don't care if it's your mama, your sister, your brother, whoever it is. When you need that time apart to grow, I just found that I'm going to grow in that time apart. And if that brings us back together again, that's great. And if it doesn't, that's great too. So no more validation necessary because I'm very comfortable in knowing who I am.
And I found that to be very true, especially when I started digging deeper when I went into Chicago and I wanted to be a better person. I mean, I consciously made that choice.
Mhm.
And because I never felt like because I was always apologizing for who I was,
Yeah.
because there was never good enough. I was out on one scam after another, according to my family. And I don't even know where they came up with this crazy, wacky stuff that they talked about, but is like, they're the ones that were crazy. I mean, that's basically the bottom line is they were the crazy ones and I wasn't. But what I had found when I consciously made that choice, it was amazing the amount of demons that came up that I didn't even know that were still there.
Mhm.
All that head trash that comes in of, you know, I'm finally growing up, and the process of growing up, then I started to have to look at that I was like this little kid still. Emotionally, I was still very crippled because I also learned that I had checked out of my body when I was a young child because of abuse that was going on with me, and discovered it was my mother years later. It was my mother, not, I mean, my father was involved, but not to what made me crazy that
Yeah.
way. And that was a pretty hard thing to deal with, especially when she died and I was in the process and really seeing who she was. But the whole point of wanting to do that and being better, I just, it was like I couldn't have anybody control me anymore. And when I moved out to Chicago, I thought I was being a big girl. I put on my big girl panties and I'm like, look, mom, I don't need you anymore. And she was so angry with me. She was so angry. She's like, you're just such a bitch. And she hung up the phone on me. And I'm like, okay, I didn't see that one coming. And I had to sit in there and be with it because it was like, I don't understand what happened. And then I realized it was because I did put on my big girl panties and I didn't need mommy anymore. And she didn't like that because she lost total control over me.
Yeah. You're
And
taking
that
back
was, I'm sorry.
taking back your power. A lot of people don't like that, right?
No, and and you don't think your mother is one of those kind of people that's going to do that, but boy, I learned a lot about my mother from that time on. And but it was, I needed to establish those boundaries. I needed to say I was okay with you. I needed to say it's okay if you die now. I don't have to like have guilt for the rest of my life because I didn't resolve my conflicts with you. Because
Mhm.
that was one thing that I felt was important, and I was driven by spirit a lot on this, was, you got to work through your issues with your mother. I mean, that was a lifelong thing, so much so that my grandmother screamed at me, who was deceased, to get back in touch with my mother. And I
Mhm.
moved to Colorado to work through my stuff with
Mhm.
her. And at that point, there was a point where I said, if you don't stop these people from torturing me, and you don't stop treating me like I'm 16 years old doing drugs, then you will never ever see me again. And it was amazing how that woman stopped everything, because I meant it. Because it's like, I don't deserve to be treated this way. I'm a member of this so-called family. I'm trying to be an adult. I'm trying to be responsible. I know you all think whatever you think about me, but I'm not that person. And as long as you want to think that, then that's fine, because I'm quite happy being by myself. I love living in South Florida without my family. I didn't have that trauma crap with them. And all that made a difference. So when I'm in Chicago, I have my own little drama going on around me, because I'm dealing with spirit and dark entities and messages coming in from all over the place. It's like, who needs a family when you got crazy spirit guides talking to you and mentoring you and showing you what you're doing and who you are and you're going, really? Wow, really? Oh my God, really? And you're sitting there having to embrace that hugeness, that
Yeah.
I'm somebody. I'm not this little pipsqueak of a nobody that I had been lied to about my whole life.
Yeah.
And like you said, that depression became excitement, because it's like, well, what else is in there that I don't know about?
And
And
you know,
every one of us are like this.
and this is what I wanted to say, but the interesting thing is in that depression, when we find that happiness and we really harness, that's when you realize not everyone's happy for you, but they're happy for you when you're depressed. Like they're happy when they
Yep.
see you up shit's creek, you know what I mean? But when you overcome it, it's like they stop almost applauding for you. And it's like, okay, so you have the wolf in sheep's clothing, right? You have that surrounding you. And that's what I noticed. The more that I went into this depressive state, the more I was learning about people around me. And I'm just like, that's so true, right? And then I come out of it, and people leave, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. But then now you have to figure out who you are, because now you've changed again. And you're continuously evolving and changing, but then you're just like an old self comes out, and you're like, oh no, that's not me. And okay, so who is me? And this has been going on even for myself now for the last 6 months, because you and I had a discussion 6 months ago about something, and I've been working through something, and now I opening up this heart thing, and it's just like, and now another layer is coming up of like, I don't give two rats asses about anything. And it's just like, okay, now this is another layer that's showing up, and now I'm a whole different person. So how do I communicate as this different person? So we're always evolving, growing, and communicating, but it's those beginning stages of spiritual awakening that are the most difficult ones, because you just feel like you're sitting in this wilderness desert by yourself, and there's sand, which is the chaos, and a storm, which is your mind going through it, and you're by yourself. And once you reach this certain elevation, you're just like mom, dad, sister, brother, whoever it is. It's like, you know what? That's a you problem, not a me problem. That has nothing to do with anything that I'm experiencing. But all I know is that the more that I see who I am, the greater my gifts from God become, because now I'm able to see a different layer of energetic frequency. I'm able to see something deeper, not only just the light, but the darkness. Because when you can see the darkness, you correlate that where the blockages are, get yourself into that light. You're off to the racetracks after that. And that's why now we live, but we could accelerate, because that acceleration, you're able to deal with, how you said the darkness. Last week I was dealing with some dark entity that was stuck on my spirit too, and I was just like, homie, you and we're going into the forest right now, and we're going to go into a battlefield. And we did it, and of course they lost, but that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. So validation becomes nothing. You're still
Exactly.
yourself. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to take a break to hear a word from our sponsors, and we'll see you just in a few minutes.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are on the Bold Brave TV. And we are here today with Zak Lioutas, and we are just talking about the spiritual awakening process that we have both gone through. And something that you said, I wanted to just mention that when I started, meditation was probably the thing that got me to be kind of calm enough. And I started to understand more about the bigger picture, but not that I was in that bigger picture yet. Because I'm like going to the Council of Nine and I'm working with the Brotherhood of the White Light. And, and it's like, and I knew who all these beings were, not that most people didn't know. And I didn't realize how secretive of the societies that they were. But I also, during that process, my hearing to spirit developed more. And I remember I was in Nevada and I was 2 weeks late on my rent. I had no job. My boyfriend at the time didn't have a job. And I'm sitting here and I'm just ranting and raving and yelling at the Archangel Michael about, I think you need to get your ass down here, find out what it's like to live here. This is absolutely insane. I can't believe it. And why are you not helping me? And I was just ranting because I was so frustrated. And you know what he did? All he did was laugh at me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you're laughing? This isn't funny. And then it hit me because it was so incredibly funny, because it was like, that was the message. Lighten up. Just lighten up. Because there's this humanness when you're first waking up that you're just so almost erratic. To me, that's how I felt, because it was like there's this moment of peace and tranquility and I'm one with the universe and life is good. And then there's this crazy human side that I didn't know how to fit in both the worlds at the same time at that onset. But what I did find was humor was the thing that helped to bridge that the most. And so I had to remember to laugh more and realize how ridiculous I was, because, it's like, okay, I'm on a movie stage. Okay. And the whole time I was in Chicago, this friend of mine kept saying, get off the stage. And I'm like, what do you mean get off the stage? Well, you're in the drama of your life. What do you mean I'm in the drama? And it was like, I am not in the drama. It's like, you have to have emotion. You have to do this if you're going to move forward and blah, 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 blah. And I was doing this to him. And then I finally got what he was saying. Yeah, be the observer.
Yeah.
And start looking at like what's going on around you and how do you weave inside and out of this? And how do you find joy and just sit back and observe it? And then when you need to do something, you move forward, you laugh, whatever it is you do. Me at that time, dancing was what brought the joy to me to keep weaving into this new dimension that I was moving into, because I was going up several layers, octaves in dimensional frequency. And that was a tough thing for me to handle, because I was always like almost agitated because my nervous system was like on hyperspeed, and I didn't realize at the moment what was going on. I later learned, but I kept trying to calm down and relax and just be still, because that was the only way I knew how to do it. And yet when I was still, spirit is talking like there is no tomorrow. So it was like I felt like I could never get out of all of this. So you have to find your way in your own way, that really learning, who am I? How do I want to be? And sometimes I actually had to tell spirit to stop, just back off for 5 minutes and let me catch my breath. Because what I found is when they have a live one, as I used to call it, when they have a live one, they're like, oh my God, we got a live one. Do this, do this, do this. And you're like, okay. And then it's like, stop. I can't do it. And, so I had to even learn how to create boundaries with them too. That there's sometimes you just need to take a break, because our internal circulatory system, our nervous system, we're so toxic on so many levels that we're not that clear channel. And we have to get through all that toxicity in our bodies from what we brought forward in past lives, from what we thought in our thinking, all of that. So how did you deal with that?
Woo!
I love this.
Man, I cried a lot. I did. I remember when I went for a spiritual healing, and I didn't understand anything. Nothing made sense to me, but I would just cry. And I remember when I first found a teacher that wouldn't put darkness on me, because I found that a few spiritual people I went to put some dark crap on me, and I had to clear that crap off of me. So I just kept on saying, like, look how strong you are, that these spiritual people are even, putting crap on you so that you don't see yourself, and you got to just get to know yourself. And I cried a lot, and in that crying, I just kept on feeling like I don't even know why I'm crying, but I'm crying to death. I'm crying to death. I'm crying to death. Because when I went to go see my spiritual teacher, I only have one spiritual teacher right now. And if I don't see him, I just talk to God, because of everything that happened in the past. And I remember when I first saw him, and my body was doing all these things. I was driving and my head would turn. I would be driving like this, And I didn't understand that. But then I called my teacher and I said to him, if my head could spin like all the way 360, I'm like, it's going to spin. I don't know what's going on with me, but I feel like I'm in danger right now. And he's like, what's happening? And I told him, he goes, well, just tell the spirit to turn down the frequency. I'm like, what are you talking about, homie? Like, what does that even mean? And he was like, what, you don't know what that means? And I'm like, no, anything you tell me, I have no clue what you're talking about. I'm like, I meditate and I pray, and then that's the only way I get the answers. He goes, see, so you do know. He goes, you just have to dig deeper. And I thought, could you just tell me what the answer is? Because I could save 6 months. So I became that spiritual mentor that I've wanted to be like, listen, I'm going to tell you this. This is what it's going to be like, but I'm not going to make you suffer and trying to figure out, like, my spiritual teacher. Well, he didn't make me suffer. I just had to, like, well, yeah, I'm going to put that on him. He made me go deep, but I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to tell you what to do. You could argue it, or you could not argue it, but I've been there, done it, and it'll save you a year of your life. Right? So, but I cried a lot and I questioned a lot, and I went back to my old self a lot to realize that's not who I was. And I was having trouble stepping into my new self. And And even though I was told all these great things from, the universe and angels and God and everything, I still had I started comparing myself 2 years ago to the Bible a lot. Like every person in the Bible just became a character, an energetic frequency. And I was like, oh my God, I had such a Moses moment. Or, oh my God, I had such a David moment. Oh my God, that's so Peter of me. Or, oh my God, what a Judas I was. Or, so I just start comparing myself to biblical characters. And from that point on, I just was laughing through everything. And Jesus has, being a Jesus loving human being, he does have a personality and he does love humor, because he's put me through situations where he's like, ha ha, now what did you learn in this situation? So I've been there, but in the last couple of years, the way I overcame all that and stopped crying is that I start using the Bible as character references of lack and limitation. What they did in the Bible. If I played that role, what would be the next move for me? If that was my lesson of that individual, like the Mary Martha story, Mary sitting at the foot of Jesus, listening, being attentive, and Martha's trying to be the good domesticated woman to feed Jesus. Like, where did I play a lot of those roles where I tried to, instead of listen, I tried to be domesticated and try to serve, to always give, to give rather than to receive. So once I start using the biblical stories as characters of, elevating my spirit, a lot of things shifted for me. And that was a Neville Garter way. So I read a lot of Neville books, and just things started making sense, because the Bible is a very complex book, but it has so much wisdom and awareness in it. It has so many amazing teachings. It makes you think differently. But putting myself in the shoes of the characters, like Peter, Paul, like anyone that's apostles and wise, stuff like that, I learned a lot more about myself and how we have those energetic frequencies from 2000 years ago in our body today. And we have to heal through that. But when we realize it, we become mindful of it, and we know how to change it. If we don't become mindful of it, we have no clue what we could shift or what we could dissolve or what we could awaken to on a deeper level. So that's how I fully overcame a lot of things in the last 2 years.
And that's what I found, is the more conscious I became and the more present I became in the now, allowed me to just pay attention. Like if something came up, like all of a sudden I get this feeling of a doom and gloom, and it's like, well, what is this? Where is this coming from? What was I thinking? Was I thinking something? Is this a message coming in? And I had to stop, and I paid more attention to being that, and making myself a lot happier of a person by just saying, I'm just going to find joy in everything. Look at the beauty around me, because this is, our planet is a beautiful, amazing living organism, and we take it so much for granted. But then our bodies are the same exact thing. I mean, when you think about what people do to their bodies with drugs and alcohol and crazy sporting things that they do, and how they wreck their body, and yet they can still, I mean, they pay for it in the end. But the whole point is that this really is a temple, and it really does need to be treated with respect and honor. Not saying you don't go out and enjoy your life, but just do things with moderation, because I mean, I've seen things that people have done that you wonder how they even survived it. And it's because they have a greater purpose. And when I was in a drug rehab, I knew people that had slipped their wrists or shot themselves, and they're paying for it now. But it was like, why did I not die? And it was because there's something bigger for you. And I think that was the biggest thing I started to realize, because I didn't have all of that in my life. I was suicidal. I didn't want to live. I didn't understand this planet. I didn't feel like I belonged here at all. I was a misfit. I didn't even know who these people were I was living with. It's like, they were foreigners. The book, I Am a Stranger in a Strange Land, that I could identify with that. That's how I felt when I read that book. So anyways, we're going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Kathleen Flanagan. I'm your host, and we are on the Bold Brave TV. And we are here with Zak Lioutas today, and we are going to start to wind down the show. And I just want to talk to her a little bit more about the joy and happiness and what are you doing in your life right now? What's exciting things has Spirit got you going for?
Yeah, so much is happening, but I wanted to go back to the last segment you mentioned about finding that joy and happiness. And as you were speaking throughout that whole segment, I kept on hearing Spirit say to me, your whole purpose in life is to be happy. And the issue is that we lose our sense of happiness because we lose a sense of ourself. And when we lose a sense of ourself, we lose a sense of who we are, our purpose, our dynamics here on the earth, what really we're meant to do, and to be open to receiving. Because now we start, instead of being in that place of happiness, we start putting all these different restrictions on ourselves of how other people maybe see us or what we think that is good for us based on someone else's opinion or conversation, rather than go deep within our own self to ask that simple question. Would this bring more happiness in my life? Would this bring more joy in my life? There was a question that someone asked me when I was on the bus in Costa Rica, and I was by myself, and I cried through this whole journey. And it was the most interesting journey that I went through. And he said to me, if money wasn't the issue, what would you be doing today? And I said to him the exact same thing that I'm doing today. I'm traveling, I'm working, I'm giving back. I'm doing what I can with what I'm given, but I know that because I'm doing this and I'm happy and I'm showing up the way I want to show up, there is no other way but to receive more of that happiness in my life. And the finances will show up, and the vacation and the journey will show up, and the adventure will show up, and everything will show up because of that vibrational frequency that I'm coming at of happiness and joy. And yes, you're going to have the down days, but when you have those down days, you really have that opportunity to reflect and really see what's working for you and what's not working for you, and to fully eliminate, dissolve, let go, surrender, whatever word you want to use, to then step back into your happy place. The reason we become unhappy is because something is showing up energetically, and it's saying, hey, take a look at this. Be the observer, as you said previously, Kathleen. Be the observer and see where you need to adjust your life. So if we're being told that our purpose in this world is to be happy, Do we find happiness in stress? Maybe, because we may be training for an event and it might be stressful because you have to wake up every day at 6 o'clock, but you still are determined because now you're focusing on that end goal. But if you're like, this is too stressful for me, you're not really getting the results that you want. But if you say, I find happiness in the pressure of getting to where I want to go, you're going to find that simplicity and ease to go through that process. So when I think of this whole happiness thing and I had to go through it, I just kept on saying, Jesus crucified himself on the cross for me. My fears, my doubts, my this, and the only thing that he left me with is happiness. He took away my fear, he took away my pain, he took away my sorrow. Now I'm using Jesus as my example. You could use Buddha, you could use Krishna, you could use love, you could use whatever you want. For me, it's Jesus at the end of the day. So when I look at that, if that's my purpose in life is to be happy, where in my life am I missing in my happiness? And the more that you dig deep into that, if you're in a relationship and you're not happy in your relationship, you could be like, okay, where did we lose the happiness in this relationship? Is it fixable? Is it figure outable? Is it something we both want to work on? Or is it something I want to do it, but they don't want to do it? And is it something that's going to cause me more stress? Is it something that that I've learned from, and it's time for me to grow and move on? So you start seeing all these different things because now you're saying, like, this is not causing me happiness. This, me being by myself or me traveling alone right now, I don't find that happiness and joy that. I want a partner to do it. So a friend may show up, a partner may show up. You may go on an adventure with a whole group. So you are truly in that place of living in happiness. So whatever happiness means to you, happiness could be many different things. It's not just one thing. Happiness in your relationship, happiness with money, happiness with your health, with your body, with your mind, happiness in how to show up, happiness with your inner child. One thing that I've been doing for the last few months is seeking happiness from my inner child. What did I do in the past that brought me the most happiness? I used to windsurf as a child, and I used to go skimming as a child, and I loved being in the water. So this year I decided to get a paddle board. I'm in the water. So that's part of my happiness and part of my joy. I thought I'd be maybe a windsurfer. That kind of didn't work out because I wasn't going to hold on to anything. So our purpose really is to live happy. And in that happy, everything else becomes accumulated because you cannot find happiness in fear. You cannot find fear in happiness, but you could find curiosity. You could find growth. You could find opportunity. You could find stability. You could find creation. You could find imagination. You could find so much in happiness when you let go of the burdens of what society makes you think that life should be like, and really trust within yourself what life can be like for you and not what everyone else tells you it should be like.
So Zak, we have 1 minute. So how can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about you and your services?
Perfect. Thank you. Oh my God, that was such perfect timing. You can reach me on my website, bfuclub.com. That's bfuclub.com. They could find me on Instagram at Spiritual Hustler. That's HSTLR. So Spiritual HSTLR on Instagram. And then you could find me on all major podcast outlets under Be Bold, Fierce, Unstoppable.
Well, I want to thank everyone for watching today, and thank you, Zak, for joining us. This is Kathleen Flanagan with the Journey of an Awakening Spirit, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. And next week we will continue our talk on what are paradigms. And from my heart to yours, I will see you next week. God bless.
This has been the Journey of an Awakening Spirit with your host, Kathleen Flanagan. Join Kathleen each week as she will inspire and empower all those who are drawn to her to live their highest vision in the context of love and joy. Right here Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.